So I am making a quick video to give my perspective on what is happening in the industry and more importantly in Massachusetts as it pertains to representation in real estate as well as compensation models moving forward. There are a number of class action lawsuits which are probably going to go to trial within the next year that could across the board nationally change how commissions and how real estate agents are compensated. The fundamental discussion that's happening is, should sellers be paying the commission for the buyer agent? That's kind of the very, very basics of it. And in Massachusetts, our multiple listing service, which is called MLSPIN, has recently offered, now this would have been as of June 30th, a settlement to a lawsuit that they are party to in Massachusetts. And part of the settlement would be for them to be paying $3 million to the plaintiffs and to be changing the regulations on how things operate in the state of Massachusetts with respect to commission. So currently there is some terminology called mandatory cooperation, for which in a listing agreement, an agent will let the seller know how much they are going to be charging for their collective services, and there's an indication of how much of that commission will then be shared, aka cooperating with a buyer's agent. Oftentimes that could be as very straightforward and very simply as, if it's a 5% commission, 2.5% would go to the listing agent and 2.5% would go to the buyer agent. The lawsuits that are happening are basically claiming that we are inflating the actual cost for the sellers by including buyer agency commission into the overall compensation. And the change that would happen with our MLS would be that there'll be new documentation, new disclosures that we have to provide, and that the seller can elect to not offer to pay the buyer agent any representation cost or any commission for their services. Which would then mean that if you are going to be working with a dedicated buyer agent, that the buyer is going to be responsible for paying those commissions. I think it's really a matter of kind of spin and how you look at it. Yes, there's a situation in which the total commission right now, as it's being split among the buyer and seller, is deemed a kind of seller expense. However, I also look at it at the end of the day, the buyer is the one writing the check for the cost of the property, which therefore also includes the cost of commission for both parties. I do believe it could be of value to people moving forward if listing agents were being paid directly by the sellers and buyer agents were being paid directly by the buyers as part of the overall transaction. And what the industry fears is that there is now going to be a situation where buyer agency may go away. I think that that might be a little hyperbole in a sense, because at the end of the day, this is going to be for a seller, one of their largest transactions that they are going to be incurring as far as investments go. And the same thing applies to buyers. So I would always look at, if you are a buyer and you are now going to be hiring directly a buyer agent who is going to be solely responsible for negotiating, protecting your interest in the actual transaction, and the contemplation of the offer price that you are going to put into a home is also going to incorporate the fees that you are going to need to pay for that person to protect your interest. I don't really see this as being much more than an education component in how our industry works, because at the end of the day, don't both parties want proper representation to ensure that that they are being protected in what is really your largest purchase that people are going to be making in their life, and maybe only doing it 1 or 2 times? And if you're in a position of, let's say that buyer agent charges you 2 to 2.5% for their services to walk you through the entire transaction, handholds you through the entire process, also make sure that they're protecting your interest as it pertains to what is the correct offer price and working on negotiating on your behalf, I don't really see how much of the overall industry changes, other than our job as real estate agents to educate the consumer, both the listing agent and both the lister and the buyer, on why it's so important to have individual representations, What I fear is that there's going to be this panic that, well, we're just now going to go directly to that listing agent and we're not going to need to utilize the buyer services. But just always keep in mind that literally buyer beware, that if you decide to go work directly with that listing agent, which is absolutely legal, you have absolutely the right to do that, they owe you absolutely no obligations. Their client is actually the seller. So everything that they're going to be doing as it pertains to negotiations and pricing and servicing you as a paperwork perspective is all going to be in the best interest of the actual seller who is truly their client. So I think as more of this information really becomes public, and I believe that in Massachusetts, the judge has about another 120 days in order to accept the settlement, and I'm really not seeing or hearing anything that would dictate that they would be doing something differently on that. We're going to be in a situation in which education to the consumer is going to be that much more important so that everyone can make sure that their interests are protected. Anyone have any questions on that, just leave a message on this YouTube post. And you can also reach out to me. All my contact information is below, and I am happy to give you more details about it. Thanks.